before presenting our session for this time, first of all, I would like to thank NITTR for inviting me here to deliver this session. Today, in this session, we will be discussing about the overview of Indian standards on the disaster resilient infrastructure. Am I audible? My voice is clear?
Yes, someone from participants can also
Yes, sir.
respond.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you so much for confirmation. Thank you. Okay, so basically we will talk today on overview of Indian standards on the disaster resilient infrastructure and how standards play an important and very crucial role to address the concerns related with the disaster resilience and mitigation. So I will just go through the slides. So before going into the depth of the standards, let us first of all understand what are the standards. The very basic question is what are the standards? So standards, they are basically a tool which provides solutions to the problems of repetitive nature. For example, let me give you one precise definition from the ISO. So a standard is basically a document which is established by consensus. The first key point is consensus. Why? Because this standard have to be used all across the nation. So that's why consensus should be there on each and every standard. And it is approved by a recognized body. In our case, in India, the recognized body is the Bureau of Indian Standards, of course, that provides for common and repeated use the rules, guidelines, or characteristics for the activities aimed at the achievement of the optimum degree of order in a given context. Like, for example, the water we are drinking, it is following some standard. The food we are eating, they are following some standard. The table, the chair which we are using, they are following some standards. The designing of the houses, buildings, they are following some standards. So basically, we are surrounded by standards. Standards are everywhere. We just have to see our observation. Some of the most commonly used standards in India, like these are basically I have just pointed out with respect to our civil engineering branch. So one is IS 456, which is most commonly used in India for the design of plain and reinforced concrete. 10262 for the mixed design of concrete. 10500 provides the specifications for the drinking water. 1893 part 1, yes, basically for the earthquake resistant design of the structures. 800 for general construction and steel, and many more. There are so many standards related to the different aspects of the engineering. So this is basically a three-dimensional space for the standardization work. Here you can see one is the aspect, another one is the subject, and one is the level. So in basically aspects, we create what are the different subjects on which we are creating the standards. Like we formulate standards providing the guidelines, requirements that are basically the code of practice. Like IS 456 is basically the code of practice. IS 1343 for the pre-stressed concrete, that is also a code of practice. We issue the guidelines. How do we ensure the good and safe practices in the building construction? Similarly, there are some standards which are related to terminology and nomenclature, glossary of terms. Some are related with the specifications. Specifications we generally provide for the product standards, like helmets or computers, mobile phones, applications. For the basically the products, we provide the specifications. Then for sampling and inspection, method of tests, you know that IS 516 and IS 1199, they provide the method of tests for the hardened and fresh concrete also, limitation of variety, and so on. So these are basically the aspects of the various standards. Coming to the subjects, we provide standards on all the different categories which are existing in the present era, like for engineering, commerce, industry, science, medical, education, transportation engineering, food, agriculture, forest and textiles and chemicals. And regarding the different levels, they are implemented at the consumer level, associations, national, regional, international. International, basically the ISO one, International Organization for Standardization. So in BIS, basically we have to address different subjects. We are having different departments, just like in the academic institutions, we have separate departments for civil engineering, for mechanical engineering. Similarly, in the BIS also, we have different division councils. Each of the division council is related with one or the other technical department. Like civil CEDC is basically the Civil Engineering Division Council. This is the main executive body which provides the approval and adoption for any Indian standard. And the committee, the sectional committee, is basically responsible for the formulation of any standard. Like you can see, there are different sectional committees. CED is basically the Civil Engineering Department. These are some of the technical committees which are present under the Civil Engineering Division Council, and each of their title and scope is given in the title 1. So like CED 02 basically deals with the cement and concrete sectional committee. Similarly, there are so many other related with different subjects. So at present, we have total 39 sectional committees under the Civil Engineering Division Council. The one which I have highlighted, they are basically the topics of the present discussion because they are related with the hazards and disasters. Like CED 39, this one deals with the earthquake engineering. We have CED 56, which is for the Hill Area Development Engineering Sectional Committee. CED 57 deals with the cyclone resistant structures. And I have also highlighted CED 46. CED 46 basically works for the National Building Code of India. I will be talking more about NBC in the coming slides. So let us talk on each of these sectional committee one by one. First, I will go to the committee CED 39, which I am dealing at present. So this is basically the CED 39 Earthquake Engineering Sectional Committee. You can see the scope is standardization in the field of design and construction of earthquake resistant structures and in the field of instruments and tests connected therewith. We have also membership of with the ISO TC 98. TC is basically technical committee. They have their own nomenclature in the ISO one. So basically CED 39 represents India in the ISO committee meetings. So this is basically one of our membership in the ISO one. So at present, you can see we have total 16 standards which are formulated for the earthquake engineering, and all of them are basically the code of practice, basically the guidelines which we have to follow. So these are the list of the Indian standards which are basically on the earthquake resistant design. I have just put out all the numbers with the corresponding titles. Whatever all the updates regarding amendments, reaffirmation, everything is there in this table. Here, I just want to mention one thing that whenever you read any of the Indian standard, anyone, whichever branch you are belong to, so always try to read the standard with the latest edition and also with the latest amendments issued to that particular standard, because many a times I hear from the practicing engineers, the structural engineers, the consultants also, that they are still using the standards of 2005, 2000, and maybe some are using pre-2000 standards. So that is not a good practice. You always read the standard with the present edition, latest one. That will provide you the latest updates regarding that particular standards. So basically, in the earthquake resistant design, we have the one of the main and base parent code, that is IS 1893. In this, we are having a series of standards. Different parts are covering different aspects. Like you can see, part 1 is basically for the general provisions and buildings. Part 2 is basically addressing the liquid retaining tanks, and similarly, other parts are there also. So this is basically the comprehensive list of all the standards related to earthquake resistant design. So these two are basically the recently published standards. This year only, in 2022 only, they are published. One is basically IS 1893 part 6. This is another part of the 1893 series, basically for the earthquake resistant design of base isolated buildings. And the second one is basically the confined masonry for the earthquake resistance, IS 17848. Both of them are present on our standards portal. I will just share you the link for downloading this standard. So these are the standards which are presently under development. Like one is the, you can see there is IS 13920, which was earlier published. But at that time, IS 13920 was published only for the design and detailing of reinforced concrete structures, which are subjected to seismic forces. So now the committee has thought to make a explicit standard on the steel buildings code also. So that's why they are just formulated the earthquake resistant design and detailing of steel buildings. So this is already finalized for publication by the sectional committee, and soon it will be available for the in our BIS website also. And another one is part 7, again for the IS 1893 series, for criteria for earthquake resistant design of structures of pipelines. This is also a new one. This is basically presently in the draft stage. Soon it will be open for the comments also. So this is basically the present major task which is undertaken by the CD39 sectional committee, basically to align like the list of 16 standards na, which I have shown just earlier. We have to align all of them standards. We have to revise them and align under these three main sections: IS 1893, IS 13920, and IS 13935. So basically, IS 1893 will be dealing with estimation of the hazard and analysis of a structure, means calculation of the lateral forces which are coming from the earthquake ground vibrations. The IS 13920 series will be dealing with design and detailing of the structures after estimation of the hazard and calculation of the forces. And 13935 will be dealing with the assessment and retrofitting of the already existing structures. So these are the main three sections. And in each one of them, the committee has identified 10 different category of structures. This one is IS 1893, 13920, 13935. These are basically the 10 category of structures. Already the committee has formulated some of the parts, and some parts like you can see the dams and embankments one, coastal structures, steel towers and tunnels, they are still to be formulated, and the work is currently going on for these remaining parts also. So the standards under revision, basically tripartite agreement has been signed by NDMA, BIS and IIT Madras for conducting an R&D study on the probabilistic seismic hazard analysis, PSHA. So this year only, in the month of March, the committee has finalized this seismic hazard. So based upon this revised seismic hazard, the IS 1893 will be taken up for the revision. So basically, at present, the IS 1893 Part 1 is under revision by the sectional committee, and soon it will be available on our BIS portal for sharing the public comments. So these are some of the other important works of CD39 which are under progress. Like one is for the guidelines for the seismic microzonation, basically microzonation of each and every individual states also, based upon the relevant ground characteristics like shear wave velocity and other ground motion properties. Another one is the guidelines for the seismic performance evaluation of code compliant reinforced concrete buildings, guidelines for the post-earthquake damage assessment of buildings, and criteria for the protection of non-structural elements, because generally we provide the design and detailing and all the major focus on the structural elements in any building or structure. But the committee has identified a separate standard for the protection of non-structural elements also, like the attachments and appendages in the buildings subjected to earthquake ground shaking. So these are some of the pictures which have been taken from the 2001 Bhuj earthquake. You can see that one building at the right, this one. So you can see very minor or very small damage has been occurred to this building, which has been designed following the provisions of the seismic design codes. And you can see the other buildings also. So that's why it is always suggested to please comply with the codes while construction of the buildings. So next we are having the CD56, that is the Hill Area Development Engineering Sectional Committee. It basically works in the field of developmental activities of the hill areas, such as landslide, site evaluation for human settlement, safe design, selection of building materials and modes of construction suitable for the hilly areas, addressing the problem of landslides also. So these are some of the standards which are formulated by this sectional committee. One is IS 14458 series for the provisions and guidelines for the development of retaining walls in the hilly areas. So already 6 parts were there, and part 7 for the construction of peripheral reinforced gabion walls, it is under publication. Then the landslide hazard zonation maps in the mountainous terrains, IS 44496, 2 parts are there for the meso zonation and macro zonation. Then IS 14680 for the landslide controls. What are the guidelines and methods we can be used for controlling and assessment of the landslide in the hilly areas. Then IS 14804 for the site design and selection of the materials for the residential buildings. IS 14961, this is basically the standard for the rainwater harvesting in the hilly areas, and presently it is under revision taken by the committee. And another one are IS 17163 and 162 for the investigation and stability analysis. So these are basically the related to the hill area development. The next one is the CD57 for the cyclone resistant structures. So they provide basically the recommendations and guidelines on planning, design, and construction of cyclone resistant structures and buildings. High speed winds also, warning from cyclones and tidal waves, and post cyclone rehabilitation measures also. So at present, the committee has formulated only 3 standards, namely 15498, 499, and 17164. For improving the cyclone resistance, for assessment of the vulnerability, and cyclone shelters. There are 2 more standards, new standards, which are under development. One is the guidelines for improving the cyclone resistant capacity of the Kacha houses. This is presently under development, and the method for determination of performance related to safety of the existing building impacted by wind-borne debris. This is presently under publication. So this is basically, I just want to talk about more about NBC. So NBC is one of the most widely and extensively used building code in India. This is basically a techno-legal document. Basically, it provides both the administrative provisions as well as technical provisions. NBC, it mainly provides the guidelines for regulating the building construction activities and practices across the country. It also serves as a model code for adoption by various local authorities, municipal corporation, building authorities, private consultants, etc. So the latest edition of NBC is basically NBC 2016. The first edition had came in earlier 1970s, and this is the latest and the revised one. So these are the total 13 parts which are covered under NBC. Part 11, you can see part 11, that is the approach to sustainability. This has been newly added in the present revision 2016 one. Approach to sustainability. I will talk more about that in the coming slide. So there are the other different parts which are addressing each and every aspects. Part 2 you can see for the administration one, and after part 3 we are having all the technical guidelines and provision. So part 0 is basically the integrated approach, or what we say in a very common language like teamwork. Like if you are working as a team from the initial stage of the building construction only, like when you are doing the planning and construction activity, when you are just beginning, from there only, if you just consult with the different professionals only, so then at the end of the building construction, it will be serving as a overall good construction. Like you can see, I've just highlighted that each stage, there are basically 6 major stages which are comprising the any land development project or building facility. So each stage basically requires professionals of many disciplines. Like you can see the civil engineer, geotechnical engineer, plumbing engineer, all of them, fire protection one, who should work together as a well coordinated team to achieve the desired product delivery with quality and safety and other objectives in a very effective manner. Then part 4 is basically related with the fire and life safety. Basically, in today's discussion, I am not covering the recommendations for the fire but in part 4 they are very briefly elaborated all the fire guidelines, fire provisions, basically related to fire prevention, life safety, and fire protection. Because fire, in the present time, fire is also one of the most common man-made disaster occurring very prominently in many of the areas. The next one is basically the part 6, which basically deals with the structural design. So earlier there were total 7 sections, but now there are section 8 also. Section 8 is basically on the glass and glazing, which has been newly added. So I will be discussing what are the major modifications which are made in the present revision of the NBC in each of these particular sections. So section 1, you can see basically consider the loads, forces, and effects. Mainly the our imposed load, dead loads, seismic loads, wind loads, etc. So before going into the major modifications in the NBC, here I have just added a list of some of the standards which are used for the structural design aspects, just for your kind information. So you can see, in addition to the ones we use like for the design of steel structures, for the plain and reinforced concrete structures, for the pre-stressed concrete, there is a series of IS 3370 also for the design of liquid retaining structures. There are different parts of this 3370 series. Another one, IS 11682 for the design of RCC staging for the water tanks. 14687 for the false work for the concrete structures. This is IS 2210 is presently under publication. This is basically the revision have been taken for IS 2210 for the RC shell structures and folded plates. Then for concrete chimneys we are having, and for the steel concrete composite construction, a new code has been released this year only, IS 11384 for the composite construction. Then for the safety of tall concrete buildings, we have IS 16700 2017 version, and plus one amendment has also been issued for this standard. And for the reinforced concrete arches, we have 40901. So I will be talking some more elaboration with respect to safety of the tall concrete buildings in the coming slides. Like you can see, this is basically the latest version, and presently, just for your kind update, it is basically under revision taken up by the committee. Soon, the next revision will be come out, maybe in the next year only. So, what are the major modifications which are made in this particular revision? So I have just mentioned some of them here. Like one is basically this standard has been formulated to cover the aspects relating to the reinforced concrete buildings of heights greater than 50 meters but less than or equal to 250 meters. In this present one, we are limiting the height up to the 250 meters only. And the other major modifications which are made regarding the structural systems that can be adopted in the tall buildings, the general requirements like height limitations, elevation and plan ratios, lateral drift, story stiffness and strength, density of buildings, modes of vibration, floor system materials, and both the provisions related to wind and seismic effects, because you know that in the case of tall buildings, wind effects, they are more prominent as compared to the other load combinations. So basically wind and seismic effects have been considered separately in this one. Methods of structural analysis is to be adopted, and section properties need to be considered in the analysis. Structural design aspects for various applicable structural systems, design of foundations, as well as provisions related to structural health monitoring also. So here you can see just the scope that this we have already told that the height limitations are between 50 meters and 250 meters. Also, this standard is not applicable to the tall buildings which are located in the near field of the seismogenic faults. So basically, near field of seismogenic faults means basically the whenever there is a fault. So in a radius of 10 kilometer, within the radius of 10 kilometer, we are not designing these tall buildings as per the provisions of this standard, because in those regions, in those zones, we need more rigorous approach to do the proportional analysis, design, detailing, and construction of such buildings. So we are this standard is not applicable in that particular zone. Also, for the occupancy, this standard is applicable only for the buildings that house up to maximum of 20,000 people. So here are some of the guidelines which are present in the annexure for the approval process. In case you are going to design your tall building more than 250 meters, because presently the standard is telling that the height limitation should be up between 50 meters and 250 meters. But if you are going for the height more than 250 meters, you have to just use this annexure for taking up the review process, because every code exceeding concrete tall building shall go through the following two processes. Basically, they are the type of review only: review by a structural design reviewer as well as review by an expert review panel. So basically, there is a table for the checklist. So this is basically the table, generic format for the checklist of the code exceedance of building. Based upon this checklist document, the building will need to go through the proper review process. This whole table and standard you can directly view through the IS 16700 standard. I'm not going into much details of this table. So here are some of the standards which are related with the design of ports and harbors, like IS 4651 series for the planning and design of ports and harbors. Then IS 9527 series is for the design and construction of ports and harbor structures, like concrete monoliths, pile walls, sheet pile structures, and block work. I've just added these two slides basically just for giving you some information regarding which are the other standards also, which not most common, but they are also used for the design of structures also. So let's just I will be sharing here what are the major modifications which are made in part 6 of NBC 2016 revision. So first, the section 3B is there for the bamboo. So here we have updated the design provisions for the bamboo trusses and the bamboo foundations. Also, new provisions have been included related to use of bamboo as a reinforcement in concrete, bamboo-based materials and panel products in the walls, roofing, reconstituted wood from the destructured bamboo also. There are also some pictures, like here you can see the bamboo which are used in the case of trusses as well as the pillars and foundation one, mainly in the hilly areas. These are some of the bamboo and panel products. Then section 4 is basically on the masonry. Here we have updated the provisions related to reinforced masonry for both load bearing as well as non-load bearing masonry wall, confined masonry building construction, and also this year we have published, as I have already told, IS 17848 for the confined masonry for earthquake resistance also. So that will be added in this provisions for confined masonry in the upcoming revision of NBC. Then table on the comprehensive strength of different grades of mortar has been added. Strength of masonry mortars based on mass proportioning, durability criteria for the selection of masonry mortar, brick wall up to the ground level from the foundation, maximum number of stories for the masonry construction, they are limited up to 4, and provisions related to rat trap bond. I've added one picture of rat trap bond in the coming slide. Yeah, this one. You can see just the arrangement of the rat trap bond. This basically newly added in this present revision of NBC. Then coming to section 5A, that is on the plain and reinforced concrete. So at the very first, special types of concrete has been added. One is high performance concrete, self-compacting concrete, and steel fiber reinforced concrete. Then ductile detailing provisions have also been incorporated in this one. That is IS 13920, as I have already told this one. Shear stress for the coupled shear walls, stripping time of concrete made from other than ordinary Portland cement, fly ash, and slag. Stripping time for the formworks for beams and slabs, immediate replacement of the props, and this I have already added. 4 amendments have been issued to IS 456, and here I just want to give you a small update that presently IS 456 also is under revision, and soon it will be available for sharing the public comments. So very soon we will be having a very revised version of IS 456, very new version, because we all are just studying the IS 456 2000 since our college days. So you will surely be getting the new version of IS 456 very soon. And then precautions on the use of mineral admixtures and aggregates from other than natural sources like iron slag aggregates, steel slag aggregates, copper, and aggregates from the C&D waste. So these are basically the major modifications which are done in this revision, 2016 revision. Then coverage of ductile detailing, I have already told, IS 13920 provisions are there. They have been added. Then for section B, for the pre-stressed concrete, materials, workmanship, inspection and testing of concrete one, precautions while using the Portland cement, PPC, mineral admixture, modifying reshuttering time, curing period, time of the pre-stressing, and also uncoated stress relief low relaxation 7-ply strand. This is basically a new type of strand. So earlier we are having only 4 types. This is the newly one added. So now we are having the 5 types of strands and tendons, which we generally use in the pre-stress concrete construction. Then section 6 on the steel, mechanical properties of the structural steel, they are more elaborated. Effective wind pressure on the exposed circular steel structures, they have been included. Temperature stress analysis provisions, they have been updated. On the slender cross section subjected to pure and flexural compression, updated deflection limits for the load combinations, and clarification regarding the wrapping restraint conditions and the lengths of simply supported beams, they are already provided. Necessity for fatigue assessment have been reviewed comprehensively. So basically all of these modifications, they are very briefly presented and elaborated in basically NBC 2016 version. You can just download this module and you can just refer to all of these sections. This is just basically a summary of all the major modifications which are made. Then this is basically the new chapter added, section 8 on glass and glazing works. So in this, clauses are there for the types of glasses, the associated glazing materials, for the selection and application, different types of glazing techniques for energy, light, and solar effects, load combinations, considering wind and seismic loading also, special considerations for the fire-rated glasses and related materials, safety with respect to human impact, and the guidelines for choosing the glazing systems like selection, design, fabrication, as well as installation. So this is basically the loading criteria for the calculation of the appropriate glass thickness. In this, we have considered the wind effects also, as well as seismic loading effects also from 1893 part 1. Then for the design and selection, there are some of the parameters are there, like performance criteria, design parameters are there, materials for the structural frame, finishes, anchorages, and various hardware materials. Then for the fabrication and installation, respective requirements are there, like factory requirements, handling, transportation, and other installation practices for the installation one. And both the types of testing, laboratory testing as well as the on-site testing, the provisions are there, specifically related to for the water, air infiltration, acoustic insulation, fire insulation, thermal performance, as well as structural performance. And regarding the maintenance and durability, which is the most common issues related to the glass and glazing materials. So there are also maintenance infrastructure, material maintenance, and common practices which are used for the maintenance works. They are listed out there. So this is basically one more section which has added in basically the part 6 only for the structural design, considering the multi-hazard risk in various districts in India. You can see different types of disaster which are just I have just highlighted on the left hand side: earthquake, cyclone, floods, landslide, soil liquefaction, winds, cloud burst, slope failure, landslides. So At the present time, you can see that there are many instances where you can see one hazard may cause the occurrence of or accentuation of another hazard, such as you can see that some of the times when an earthquake occurs, after then landslide is triggered or accelerated, and just like that, after a cyclone event, windstorms come, floods come. So they are a combination of hazards. So that's why one separate section has been added to address the issues which are related to the basically the multi hazard or combination of hazards in various districts in India. So there is basically a multi-hazard prone areas. A separate annexure has been made, which is given in the NBC 2016 only, regarding the classification. The criteria adopted for identifying the multi-hazard prone areas may be as follows. You can see various combination have been made, like for earthquake and flood risk prone areas, there are a total 139 districts in India. For the cyclone and flood risk prone areas, six districts are there. So similarly, for the various combinations, we have identified several districts. So based upon this approach, based upon if one knows about which district is basically just experiencing which of the combination of these hazards, so one can the local authorities, the municipal authorities which are responsible for the construction activities there, they can adopt suitable guidelines or provisions to address those combination of hazards. So that's why this table is very important considering the disaster related issues. Now the very important, one of the very important question arises, like BIS has been formulated the standards for a very long time, and the task of formulating and publishing the standards be done on the basis of our sectional committee, on the contribution from our committee members. But if those guidelines, if those provisions are not implemented in the building bylaws, if they are not followed in the building construction practices, then there will be no use of formulating that particular standard. Because as you can see, as I've already shown the picture from the 2001 Bhuj earthquake, you can see if the buildings are not compliant with the codal provisions, then they will of course face the severe damage uh, after past any major disaster like flood or earthquake or any cyclone. So that's why we need some instruments, some methods for regulation of the building construction practices as well as activities in our country. So here I have just listed out some of the instruments by which a building regulation can be made for the construction works. Like any district or town, they can just incorporate the provisions which are mentioned in the standards as well as in the NBC, in the Town and Country Planning Act, Developmental Act, or when they are formulating and planning their master plans, zonal plans, and layout plans for the rural areas, for the urban areas, there also they can just adopt some of the provisions of the NBC in the Municipal Corporation Act, municipality, and also the building bylaws. So I just want to give you some examples, some of the states which have already adopted the provisions of NBC. Like you can see on the screen that Tamil Nadu Combined Development and Building Rules 2019, they have already adopted several parts of NBC. You can see that part 4, part 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 in their building bylaws. Similarly, Kerala Municipality Building Rules, Kerala Panchayat Building Rules 2011, they have also incorporated many parts of NBC in their rules, building bylaws, and regulations. This is also an example, Gujarat Town Planning and Urban Development Act 1976. They have also adopted Part 4, Part 6, Part 7 in their building bylaws and regulations. So we need to have some system how we can implement those particular standards so that it will provide basically good practices, good construction practices, so that it would be helpful to make our structures, our houses, our buildings more disaster resilient. So these are basically the sustainable development goals which are identified by the United Nations. These are the 17 SDGs, and right now BIS is working to map each and every of the standards which are presently under development, as well as those standards which have already been published to one of these sustainable development goals, because uh, uh, we have a target of achieving all these goals of sustainability by the year 2030. So we will be working upon this one in the coming present time, and we are formulating the corresponding standards. And that's why a separate part 11 on approach to sustainability has been added in the 2016 revision of NBC also. So how can we implement, how can we initiate more sustainable use of building construction materials, uh, water efficient usage of water efficient products, as well as rainwater harvesting measures, uh, solar power, wind power, how can we use those guidelines and provisions in the construction of buildings and houses, so as to achieve the sustainability and to promote the use of natural and renewable resources. So this is basically a simplified guidelines for the earthquake safety of buildings from the National Building Code of India 2016. This has been formulated by BIS in collaboration with NDMA. So this is basically written in the form of conversation between, you can see I've taken one screenshot from this book. You can see that little girl, she is basically Munni, and his uncle is there, Chacha ji. So Munni is basically different questions, small questions regarding the earthquakes. How can we construct earthquake-resistant buildings? How do we locate seismic zones in India? And Chacha ji is basically answering her questions. So this is written in a very beautiful and simplified language. I would request all of you to just go through this simplified guidelines. They are posted in our BIS homepage in the What's New section. You can just go through that and download it, and you can just go through this simplified guidelines. I hope you all will like it very much. And this is the another series for the guide for the homeowners and home buyers, which has been recently inaugurated by our honorable Minister of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, Shri Piyush Goyal ji, in the fourth governing council meeting. So basically there are three guides for basically the homeowners and home buyers. The first series of this guide is basically related with the building permit process. So what is basically the aim of releasing these guides? To basically what we say, to create awareness among the general public of their rights, of their duties, when they are going for the construction of their own houses or of their own homes, or when they are going to purchase any land or any flat or apartment from the builders and developers. What basic information, what basic idea you need, so that are basically presented in these guides. The series one of this guide is basically the building permit process. What are the various steps which are involved in obtaining the permit from the local development authorities and any district or state? The second one is basically the when you are going to construct your own independent houses, own independent homes. So what basic information you should have regarding that one. And the third one is basically when you are going to purchase any apartment or flat from a builder or developer. So you can, this is also present on our BIS homepage in the What's New section. You can just go and download all of these three guidelines. I've also placed the link here for downloading all the soft copies of these three guides. So they are basically in the form of pamphlets, very small one, only 5 to 6 pages are there. And it is basically written in the form of a flow chart and the checklist, what items you should have considered before going for the construction of your own houses or purchasing the apartments from the developer. So this basically I have taken one screenshot for this is basically the guide one for the building permit process. You can see on the left side that there is a checklist, the checklist documents, which documents to be submitted with the application for the building permit process. So similarly, we have the other two guidelines also. So you can just go and download it from there. Also, you can download any published and printed Indian standard from our official website. I have pasted the link also here at any free of cost. Whichever department, whichever subject you want to download, any Indian standard or a special publication or any handbook, you can just download from the standards-edge.com. So in closing, I just want to mention only one thing, that we should always remember that structural safety is our utmost responsibility. There are other factors also when you are going to construct your houses, when you are going to construct your building, like functionality requirement, sustainability issues are there, aesthetics and economies are there. But try to never compromise or negotiate with the safety of your building, because lives of the people, lives of you, me, are at stake. So we never have to compromise with the structural safety. So for any queries or suggestions related to any of the published Indian standard, as well as on the standards which are under the draft stages or which are under development, you can just write to us at ced@bis.gov.in. We will try to very shortly resolve any of the queries or suggestions which are provided by you. We always welcome the comments and suggestions from all the people across India. So for getting more information and updates, you can visit to our BIS homepage, that is bis.gov.in, and our Manak Online portal also. Manak Online portal is basically made for the consumers only. So you can just go there, you can do the one-time registration, then log in, and you can see all the activities which are going on in the standardization departments, what are the various draft standards which are under development, in which stages they are which are the standards which are available for comments also. You can provide your comments to the portal also, as well as you can just share your comments through our email ID also at the ced.bis.gov.in. And we always value your inputs, we always value your suggestions, because you can see in the present time, time is changing, climate is changing, lot of modifications and advancement are coming in the technologies also. So that's why we have also a policy of revising and taking review of our printed standards as well as the standards under development. So we always welcome your valuable suggestions for taking up the revision and review of the Indian standards published. So with this, I will now end up my session. Thank you very much for all of you for your patient listening. Thank you very much.